The first time I saw him, he was a silhouette against the Los Angeles skyline, his shadow swallowing the room like a storm cloud. Vincent Kane, the lawyer everyone whispered about, stood in the doorway of that dimly lit bar, his tailored suit screaming money and menace. I was 22, a runaway with nothing but a sketchbook and a chip on my shoulder, and he looked at me like I was something he could own. I didn't know then that I'd spend 3 years as his possession. My name is Elliot Harper, and this is the story of how I lost myself and how I clawed my way back. It was 2022, and I was scraping by in a city that chewed up dreamers like me. Los Angeles was all glitter and grit, a place where ambition and desperation shared the same bed. I'd fled my small-town Ohio life after my dad threw me out for kissing a boy at prom. With no degree, no family, and a portfolio of half-finished sketches, I was bussing tables at a dive bar called the Rusty Anchor. That's where Vincent found me. He slid onto a bar stool one night, his eyes locking onto mine like a predator sizing up prey. "You've got a spark," he said, his voice smooth as whiskey. "Why waste it here?" He handed me his card, embossed with gold lettering, Vincent Kane, attorney at law. I should have thrown it away. Instead, I tucked it into my pocket, feeling the weight of his gaze long after he left. The next day, I called him. Maybe it was desperation, or maybe it was the way he'd looked at me like I was more than a nobody. He invited me to his office, a glass tower overlooking the city. Vincent was in his early 40s, with sharp cheekbones and a smile that could cut glass. He offered me a job as his personal assistant, promising a salary that made my head spin. "You'll live in my world," he said. "You'll see things most people only dream of." I said yes. God help me. I said yes. At first, it was intoxicating. Vincent's world was penthouses and private jets, gala dinners with politicians and celebrities who treated him like royalty. I wasn't just his assistant. I was his shadow, always at his side, fetching coffee, scheduling meetings, and learning to navigate his moods. He was charming when he wanted to be, showering me with gifts: a new phone, designer clothes, a watch that cost more than my dad's car. But there was always a catch. Every favor came with strings, every compliment laced with control. "You're mine, Elliot," he'd say, his hand lingering too long on my shoulder. I told myself it was just his way, that I was lucky to have his attention. I was a kid from nowhere, and he was Vincent Kane. Who was I to question him? But the cracks started showing early. He'd snap if I spoke to someone too long at his events, his eyes narrowing like I'd betrayed him. He'd check my phone, claiming it was for security. He insisted I move into his downtown condo, saying it was more convenient. I didn't argue. How could I? He paid for everything. My sketches gathered dust in a corner while I learned to anticipate his every need. Then there was the night that changed everything. 6 months in, after a gala where I'd laughed too loudly with a waiter, Vincent dragged me into his car and slammed the door. "You think you can flirt in front of me?" he hissed, his face inches from mine. I stammered an apology, my heart pounding, but he just laughed, cold and sharp. "You're nothing without me, Elliot. Don't forget that." I didn't sleep that night. I lay in his guest room, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd ended up here. I was falling for Heimer, at least, for the version of him I'd built in my head. The one who'd plucked me from obscurity, who'd promised to make me someone. But the real Vincent was a storm, and I was drowning in it. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened, handing me a coffee and a smile. "We're good, right?" he said. I nodded, because what else could I do? I was trapped, not by chains, but by the life he'd given me. I couldn't go back to bussing tables, to being nobody. So I stayed. That was my first mistake. Over the next year, Vincent's grip tightened. He controlled where I went, who I saw, what I wore. He'd praise me one moment, calling me his muse, then tear me down the next, saying I'd never survive without him. I started to believe it. My friends from the bar stopped texting didn't recognize the polished, hollow version of me at Vincent's side. My sketchbook stayed closed. I hadn't drawn in months. But there was one person who saw through the facade. Maya Torres, a paralegal at Vincent's firm, was everything I wasn't: bold, unapologetic, with purple hair that turned heads and a laugh that filled rooms. She was trans, and she wore her identity like armor, refusing to let the world dim her light. We met at a firm event, where she caught me staring at my reflection in a champagne flute, looking lost. "You okay, kid?" she asked, her voice warm but sharp, like she could see right through me. I shrugged, forcing a smile. "Just tired." She raised an eyebrow. "Tired? Or trapped?" That question hit like a punch. I didn't answer, but Maya didn't push. Instead, she slipped me her number, saying, "Call me when you're ready to talk." I didn't know it then, but Maya would become my lifeline. Vincent hated her. "She's trouble," he'd mutter whenever she was around, his eyes darkening. I think he sensed she was someone he couldn't control. And he was right. By the end of that first year, I was unraveling. Vincent's moods were a minefield, one wrong step, and he'd explode. He never hit me, but his words were just as bruising. "You're lucky I keep you around," he'd say. "No one else would want you." I'd nod, swallowing the shame, because part of me believed him. But Maya's number burned a hole in my pocket. One night, when Vincent was out of town, I called her. We met at a diner, far from his world of glass towers and power plays. Over greasy fries and bad coffee, I told her everything: how I'd fallen into Vincent's orbit, how I didn't know how to get out. She listened, her eyes steady, and when I finished, she said, "You're not his, Elliot. You're your own person. Don't let him steal that from you." For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. That night, I went back to Vincent's condo and opened my sketchbook. My hands shook as I drew a rough sketch of Maya, her purple hair glowing under diner lights. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. For the first time in a year, I felt like me. But Vincent was coming home soon, and I knew he'd never let me go. The city was a maze of light and shadow, and I was starting to see the bars of my cage. Vincent's condo, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and cold marble floors, felt more like a prison than a home. Every morning, I woke up to his voice clipped, commanding, expecting me to be at his beck and call. But Maya's words from that diner night echoed in my head: "You're your own person." I clung to them like a lifeline, even as Vincent's shadow loomed larger. Work at his law firm was a whirlwind of high-stakes deals and higher egos. Vincent was a king in that world, his name opening doors and silencing rooms. I was his appendage, always 2 steps behind, carrying his briefcase or taking notes in meetings where million-dollar contracts were tossed around like poker chips. But I was starting to notice things: whispers about Vincent's methods, clients who looked nervous when his name came up, files that disappeared when I asked questions. One afternoon, I overheard a conversation in the firm's break room. 2 associates, oblivious to my presence, were talking about a case Vincent had won. "He doesn't play fair," one said, her voice low. "That witness, gone. No one knows where." The other laughed nervously. "That's just Vince being Vince." I froze, my coffee cup halfway to my lips. I'd always known Vincent was ruthless, but this was different. It was the first time I wondered if I was in over my head, not just emotionally, but in something darker. That night, I texted Maya. We met at a park, far from Vincent's prying eyes. She sat on a bench, her purple hair tucked under a beanie, and listened as I spilled my fears. "He's not just controlling," I said, my voice shaking. "I think he's dangerous." Maya didn't flinch. "Then you need to get out, Elliot. Now." It's not that simple, I said. He pays for everything: me rent, my phone, my life. If I leave, I'm back to nothing. She grabbed my hand, her grip firm. You're not nothing. You're an artist, a dreamer, a fighter. He's the one who's nothing without people to control. Her words lit a spark, but fear doused it fast. Vincent had eyes everywhere: his driver, his assistants, even the doorman at his condo. Leaving wasn't just about walking out. It was about escaping a man who'd built his empire on never losing. The next week, things got worse. Vincent caught me sketching during a rare moment of downtime. He snatched my sketchbook, flipping through pages of half-finished drawings, portraits of Maya, cityscapes, anything that wasn't him. His face darkened. This is what you waste your time on, he said, tossing the book onto the floor. I give you everything, and you're doodling like a child. I bit my tongue, but inside, I was screaming. That night, I hid the sketchbook under my mattress, terrified he'd destroy it. It was the only piece of me he hadn't touched. Maya became my anchor. We'd meet in secret coffee shops, libraries, anywhere Vincent wouldn't look. She told me about her own journey, how she'd fought to live authentically in a world that tried to box her in. You don't owe him your life, she said one night, her voice fierce. You owe yourself a chance to be free. I wanted to believe her, but Vincent's hold was suffocating. He started tracking my location, claiming it was for my safety. He'd call me at random hours, demanding to know where I was. Once, when I was late coming back from a grocery run, he was waiting at the condo, his eyes cold. Don't make me worry, Elliot, he said, his voice soft but laced with threat. You know how I get. I nodded, my stomach churning. I knew exactly how he got. The breaking point came a month later. Vincent was hosting a dinner at his condo, a power play with some big-shot clients. I was supposed to play the perfect assistant, smiling and silent. But Maya had texted me earlier. A simple message: you're stronger than you think. I clung to those words as I poured wine and dodged Vincent's sharp glances. One of the clients, a woman named Claire, pulled me aside during a lull. You're Elliot, right? She said, her eyes kind but searching. I've seen you at these things. You don't belong here. I blinked, caught off guard. What do you mean? She leaned closer, her voice low. Vincent's not who you think he is. Be careful. Before I could respond, Vincent appeared, his arms sliding around my waist like a claim. Everything okay? He asked, his smile tight. Claire excused herself, but her words stuck with me. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized I couldn't keep pretending. I had to leave. But leaving Vincent Kane wasn't like quitting a job. It was like trying to outrun a hurricane. The next day, I started planning. I had no money of my own. Vincent had made sure of that, but I had Maya. She offered me a place to stay, a couch in her tiny apartment. It's not much, she said, but it's yours for as long as you need. I spent the next week gathering courage, squirreling away small things: a few clothes, my sketchbook, a burner phone Maya gave me. Vincent was distracted, buried in a high-profile case, and I used that to my advantage. But he wasn't careless. One night, he caught me packing a bag. Where do you think you're going? He asked, his voice calm but deadly. I froze, my heart hammering. Just organizing. I lied. He stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. Don't lie to me, Elliot. You're not leaving. You can't. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, not of me, but of losing control. It made me bold. I'm not your property, I said, my voice shaking but steady. He laughed, a sound that chilled me. You'll come crawling back. You always do. That night, I didn't sleep. I knew I had to move fast. The city felt different now, like it was holding its breath. waiting for me to make my move. Every shadow seemed to carry Vincent's presence. Every car horn a warning. I had one shot to escape, and I couldn't afford to mess it up. Maya was my rock. We planned in whispers, meeting in crowded places where Vincent's spies wouldn't notice. She found me a part-time job at a coffee shop through a friend, enough to start saving for a new life. "You're not just running," she told me one night, her eyes fierce. "You're rebuilding." But Vincent wasn't making it easy. He sensed something was off, his questions growing sharper, his grip tighter. He started locking the condo's doors at night, claiming it was for security. My burner phone became my lifeline, hidden in a sock drawer where he'd never look. Every text from Maya was a reminder that I wasn't alone. One evening, while Vincent was at a late meeting, I rifled through his office, desperate for anything that could help me. I didn't know what I was looking for: cash, evidence, something to hold over him. Instead, I found a locked drawer. My hands shook as I jimmied it open with a paperclip, a trick I'd learned as a kid. Inside were files, dozens of them, labeled with names I didn't recognize. One caught my eye: Elliot Harper. My stomach dropped. The file was thin, but it held everything: my birth certificate, my social security number, even photos from my old life in Ohio. There were notes in Vincent's handwriting: loyal, but needs watching. Emotional leverage, family rejection. It was a playbook for controlling me. I felt sick, but I took photos of everything with my burner phone and sent them to Maya. "He's not just possessive," she texted back. "He's dangerous. Get out now." I knew she was right, but fear kept me frozen. Vincent wasn't just a lawyer. He was a man who made problems disappear. What would he do to me if I ran? The answer came a week later. I was at the coffee shop, training for my new job, when Vincent walked in. He wasn't supposed to know I was there. Maya had sworn her friend to secrecy. But there he was, his suit impeccable, his smile ablaze. "Elliot," he said, his voice smooth as ice. "Fancy meeting you here." I stammered, my hands shaking as I wiped down the counter. "I'm just helping out." He leaned closer, his breath hot against my ear. "Don't play games with me. You're mine, and you know it." The barista, a kind older woman named Rosa, stepped in. "Everything okay, Elliot?" she asked, her eyes narrowing at Vincent. He flashed her a charming smile. "Just catching up with my assistant." But Rosa wasn't fooled. She stayed close until Vincent left, promising to see me at home. As soon as he was gone, I called Maya, my voice breaking. "He knows. He's going to kill me." "He won't," she said firmly. "We're getting you out tonight." We planned it like a heist. Maya borrowed a friend's car, and I packed a single bag: me sketchbook, a few clothes, and the burner phone. Vincent was at a gala, the perfect window. At midnight, I slipped out of the condo, my heart pounding so loud I thought it would wake the city. Maya was waiting in an alley, her purple hair glowing under a streetlight. "Get in," she said, her voice steady. "You're free." But freedom wasn't that simple. As we drove through the city, my phone lit up with Vincent's number. I didn't answer, but the text came fast. "Where are you? You can't hide from me. You'll regret this." Each one felt like a punch, but Maya's hand on mine kept me grounded. She took me to her apartment, a cramped but colorful space filled with plants and art. For the first time in years, I felt safe. I crashed on her couch, clutching my sketchbook like it was the only thing tying me to myself. That night, I drew a chaotic sketch of Los Angeles, all jagged lines and neon lights, with Maya's silhouette anchoring the chaos. The next morning, reality hit. I had no money, no plan, and a powerful man hunting me. Maya sat me down with coffee and a notebook. "We're going to figure this out," she said. "Step 1, you need to disappear." Disappearing meant cutting ties. I ditched my old phone, changed my social media, and started using a fake name at the coffee shop. Maya helped me open a bank account Vincent couldn't trace. But every day, I looked over my shoulder, expecting to see his face. A week later, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Claire, the client from the dinner. Elliot, she said, her voice urgent. Vincent's asking about you. He's not letting this go. What does he want? I asked, my throat tight. You know what he wants, she said. Control. But I've seen his files. Elliot, you're not the first. There are others people he's broken, discarded. You need to stay gone. Her words sent a chill through me. I wasn't just escaping a bad relationship. I was escaping a predator. That night, I told Maya everything. She didn't hesitate. We're not just hiding, she said. We're fighting back. Fighting back meant exposing Vincent. Maya had a friend, a journalist named Sam, who worked for a local paper. We met him at a diner, where I handed over the photos from Vincent's drawer. Sam's eyes widened as he scrolled through them. This is big, he said. But it's dangerous. Vincent's connected cops, judges, you name it. I don't care, I said, surprising myself. I'm done being afraid. Sam agreed to dig deeper, but he warned us to lay low. Vincent wasn't just a lawyer. He was a machine, and we were ants trying to topple him. But for the first time, I felt a spark of hope. I wasn't alone anymore. Hiding in Los Angeles was like trying to vanish in a spotlight. The city was too loud, too bright, and Vincent's reach was everywhere. Every time I stepped outside, I felt his eyes on me, even though I knew he couldn't be there. Maya's apartment was my sanctuary, but it couldn't shield me from the fear that gnawed at my bones. Work at the coffee shop kept me grounded. Rosa, the barista, became a quiet ally, slipping me extra shifts and never asking questions. I started sketching again, filling my sketchbook with images of the city, its chaos, its beauty, its people. Every stroke felt like a rebellion, a way to reclaim the pieces of myself Vincent had stolen. But Vincent wasn't gone. He sent messages through others' clients, co-workers, even a delivery guy who showed up at the coffee shop with a note. Come home, Elliot. We can fix this. I burned it in the alley behind the shop, but the words lingered. He wasn't giving up. Maya and I spent nights plotting with Sam, the journalist. He'd uncovered more on Vincent's shady deals, missing witnesses, a trail of people who'd crossed him and vanished. He's careful, Sam said, poring over the files I'd given him. But he's not perfect. There's a pattern. The pattern was control. Vincent didn't just win cases. He owned people, assistants, interns, even clients. Anyone who got too close either fell in line or disappeared. Sam found records of two others like me, young men who'd worked for Vincent and then dropped off the map. One, a guy named Ryan, had filed a restraining order before vanishing. The other, Caleb, was last seen leaving Vincent's condo 3 years ago. We need more, Sam said. Something concrete to tie him to this. Maya leaned forward, her eyes blazing. What about his clients? That woman, Claire, she knows something. Sam nodded. I'll reach out. But Elliot, you need to stay out of sight. If Vincent finds you, this all falls apart. Staying out of sight meant living like a ghost. I dyed my hair blonde, wore hoodies to blend into the city's crowds. Maya taught me how to move through Los Angeles unnoticed, sticking to busy streets and avoiding Vincent's haunts. But the fear never left. One night, I woke up screaming, dreaming of Vincent's hands around my throat. Maya was there, her voice steady. You're safe, she said, holding me until the shaking stopped. He can't touch you here. But he could. A week later, Rosa pulled me aside at the coffee shop. Some guy was here asking about you, she said, her face tight. Fancy suit. Slick talker. Said he was your uncle. My blood ran cold. Vincent didn't have my new address, but he was closing in. I called Maya, and we moved my things to a friend's place across town. It was a temporary fix, but it bought us time. Sam came through with a lead. Claire, the client, agreed to meet us at a park, far from Vincent's world. She was nervous, her eyes darting around as she spoke. Vincent's got dirt on everyone, she said. Judges, cops, even me. That's why I warned you. Elliot. I've seen what he does to people who try to leave. Do you have proof? Sam asked. She hesitated, then handed him a USB drive. Emails, recordings, some of his off-the-books deals. It's not enough to take him down, but it's a start. That night, Sam worked through the files, his face grim. This is bigger than I thought, he said. Vincent's tied to some powerful people. If we go public, we need to be ready for blowback. Maya squeezed my hand. We're ready. Right, Elliot. I nodded, but my heart was racing. Going up against Vincent meant risking everything, not just my safety, but Maya's, Sam's, even Claire's. But I couldn't keep running. I had to fight. The next day, I went back to the coffee shop, determined to keep my routine. That's when I saw him. Not Vincent, but his driver, a hulking man named Marcus who'd always watched me too closely. He was across the street, leaning against a black SUV, his eyes locked on the shop's door. I ducked into the back, my hands shaking as I texted Maya. He's here. She was there in 20 minutes, pulling me into her car. We need to end this, she said, her voice fierce. No more hiding. We met Sam at his office, a cramped space filled with papers and coffee cups. He'd been digging deeper into Vincent's files, cross-referencing the USB drive with public records. There's a case from 2 years ago, he said. A client of Vincent's, a whistleblower, went missing after testifying. The cops called it a runaway, but I found payments from Vincent's firm to a private investigator right after. You think he... I couldn't finish the sentence. Sam nodded. It's a lead. If we can tie Vincent to that disappearance, we've got him. But leads weren't enough. We needed evidence, and Vincent was too smart to leave it lying around. Maya had an idea. What if we bait him? She said. Get him to slip up. Catch him on record. It was risky, but I was desperate. We decided I'd call Vincent, pretend I wanted to come back, and arrange a meeting. Sam would wire me with a recorder, and Maya would be nearby, ready to pull me out if things went south. The call was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Vincent answered on the first ring, his voice dripping with smug satisfaction. I knew you'd come around. Elliot, he said. Meet me at the condo. Tonight. I agreed, my stomach churning. As I hung up, Maya grabbed my hand. You're not alone, she said. We're doing this together. That night, I walked into Vincent's condo, the recorder hidden under my shirt. The city sparkled outside, but inside, it felt like a trap. Vincent was waiting, his smile sharp enough to cut. Welcome home, he said. The condo smelled of expensive cologne and danger. Vincent stood by the window, his silhouette framed against the Los Angeles skyline, just like the first time I'd seen him. But now, I saw him for what he was, a man who thrived on control, who'd built an empire on fear. The recorder taped to my chest felt like a bomb, ticking with every word we spoke. You look tired, Elliot, Vincent said, his voice smooth but edged with menace. Running away doesn't suit you. I forced myself to meet his eyes. I needed space, I said, keeping my voice steady. But I'm here now. He stepped closer, his gaze dissecting me. You think you can just walk away? After everything I've done for you. The air was thick with tension, every word a tightrope. I had to keep him talking, get him to admit something incriminating. You gave me a lot, I said, choosing my words carefully. But it always came with a price, didn't it? His smile faltered, just for a second. You're ungrateful, he snapped. I made you. Without me, you'd still be scrubbing tables. Maybe, I said, my voice rising. But I'm not your property, Vincent. I never was. He laughed, a cold, hollow sound. You think you're free. You'll always belong to me. Everyone does. Eventually. My heart pounded, but I pushed further. Like Ryan. Or Caleb. What happened to them? Vincent. His face changed, a flicker of something dark crossing his features. Careful, Elliot, he said, his voice low. You're treading dangerous ground. I swallowed hard, the recorder burning against my skin. I know about the files, I said. The ones in your drawer. You've been keeping tabs on me. On everyone. What did you do to those guys? For a moment, he was silent, his eyes narrowing. Then he stepped closer, so close I could feel his breath. You're smarter than I thought, he said. But not smart enough. Those boys got in my way, just like you're doing now. It wasn't a confession, but it was close. My pulse raced as I tried to keep him talking. So you made them disappear? I asked, my voice shaking. He smirked, leaning in. People disappear all the time. Elliot. It's a big city. Before I could respond, the door buzzed. Vincent's head snapped toward it, his eyes narrowing. Expecting someone? He asked. I shook my head, panic rising. Maya was supposed to stay outside, but I knew Hershey wouldn't leave me alone if she thought I was in trouble. Vincent crossed the room and checked the security camera. His face darkened. Your little friend. He spat. You brought her here. He grabbed my arm, his grip bruising. You're making a big mistake, he said, dragging me toward the door. I struggled, but he was stronger, his fingers digging into my skin. The recorder slipped slightly, and I prayed he wouldn't notice. Maya was at the door, her face pale but defiant. Let him go, Vincent, she said, her voice steady. Vincent laughed, shoving me against the wall. You think you can take him from me? You're nothing. But Maya didn't back down. We've got evidence, she said. Files, recordings, witnesses. You're done. For the first time, I saw fear in Vincent's eyes. But it was fleeting, replaced by rage. He lunged at Maya, but she was faster, pulling a can of pepper spray from her bag. He stumbled back, cursing, and I seized the moment, bolting for the door. We ran, Maya and I, down the stairwell, our footsteps echoing in the empty building. Vincent's shouts followed us, but we didn't stop until we were outside, the city's lights blurring around us. Maya's friend's car was waiting, and we piled in, my heart still racing. You okay? Maya asked, her hand on my shoulder. I nodded, clutching the recorder. I got something, I said. Not everything, but something. We drove to Sam's office, where he was waiting with his laptop open. I handed him the recorder, and we listened in silence as Vincent's voice filled the room, his threats, his taunts, his vague admission about Ryan and Caleb. It wasn't airtight, but it was enough to make people listen. Sam leaned back, his face grim. This is good, he said. But we need more. If we go public now, he'll bury us in lawsuits. Maya slammed her fist on the table. Then we keep digging. We don't stop until he's done. I looked at her, my chest swelling with gratitude. She'd risked everything for me, a kid she barely knew. Why are you doing this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She smiled, soft but fierce. Because no one should have to live in a cage. Elliot. And because I see you. Those words carried me through the next week. We moved again, to a safe house Sam arranged through a contact. It was a small apartment in a quiet part of the city, far from Vincent's reach. I kept working at the coffee shop, but I was careful, always watching my back. Sam's investigation gained traction. Claire came forward with more files. And another former assistant, a woman named Lena, reached out after seeing Sam's article online. She'd worked for Vincent 5 years ago and had stories that matched my control. Manipulation. Fear. Slowly, a picture was forming, one that could bring Vincent down. But Vincent wasn't idle. He sent a lawyer to the coffee shop with a cease and desist letter, claiming I'd stolen confidential documents. Rosa tore it up, but it was a reminder that Vincent was still out there, still dangerous. One night, Maya and I sat in the safe house, sketching together. It was the first time in years I'd felt like an artist again. I drew her purple hair glowing under the dim light, her eyes fierce and kind. She drew me, a boy with a spark she'd helped reignite. We're going to win this, she said, her voice steady. I wanted to believe her, but Vincent's shadow was long, and I knew he wasn't done with me yet. The safe house was a cocoon, but the world outside was a battlefield. Sam's articles were starting to make waves, small ripples in the city's power structure. People were talking in X, in coffee shops, in the comments of local news sites. Vincent Kane wasn't untouchable anymore, but that made him more dangerous. I kept my head down, working shifts at the coffee shop and sketching in every spare moment. My art was my rebellion, each stroke a defiance of the man who'd tried to erase me. Maya was my constant, her laughter filling the safe house, her strength pulling me through the darkest moments. We'd grown close, closer than I'd ever been with anyone. It wasn't just friendship, it was something deeper, a bond forged in fire. One evening, as we sat on the safe house's tiny balcony, she took my hand. You're going to be okay, she said, her eyes locking onto mine. Not just because we're fighting Vincent, but because you're finding yourself again. I squeezed her hand, my throat tight. I wouldn't be here without you, I said. You're my family now. She smiled, her eyes glistening. Same, Elliot. Same. But Vincent was closing in. A week later, Sam got a tip from a source in the police department. Vincent had hired private investigators, men with no qualms about bending the law. They were asking about me, Maya, and even Sam. He's desperate, Sam said, his voice grim. That's good, but it's also bad. Desperate men do desperate things. We doubled down on security new locks, a burner phone for Sam, and a plan to move again if we had to. But the stress was wearing on us. I stopped sleeping, my dreams haunted by Vincent's voice. Maya noticed, pulling me into late-night talks to keep the nightmares at bay. She'd tell me stories of her childhood, growing up in a conservative town, fighting for her identity. Her resilience inspired me, but it also made me ache for her, for the battles she'd fought alone. One night, I kissed her. It was impulsive, born of gratitude and something more. She kissed me back, soft and sure, and for a moment, the world felt right. But we pulled back, both of us knowing this wasn't the time. Not yet. Not with Vincent still out there. Sam's big break came a month later. Lena, the former assistant, had kept emails from Vincent, threats, veiled and overt, that matched the ones I'd received. Combined with Claire's files and my recording, it was enough for Sam to pitch a major expose. He'd gotten a green light from his editor. But there was a catch. We needed one more piece of evidence to make it airtight. That's when Claire called again. I found something, she said, her voice shaking. A ledger. Vincent kept it hidden in a safe. It's got names, dates, payments, everything. She agreed to meet us at a warehouse, a neutral spot where Vincent's men wouldn't look. It felt like a trap, but we had no choice. Maya and I went together, Sam waiting nearby with a camera. The warehouse was dark, the air thick with dust. Claire was there, clutching a leather-bound book, her face pale. "This is it," she said, handing it to me. "But you need to move fast. He knows I took it." Before I could respond, headlights cut through the darkness. A black SUV pulled up, and my heart stopped. It was Marcus, Vincent's driver, and he wasn't alone. 2 other men stepped out, their faces hard. "Run!" Maya shouted, grabbing my arm. We bolted, the ledger tucked under my jacket. The men gave chase, their footsteps pounding behind us. We ducked through alleys, the city a blur of neon and shadow. Maya led the way, her instincts sharp, but they were gaining. I stumbled, my lungs burning, but she pulled me up, her voice fierce. "Keep going, Elliot." We reached a crowded street, blending into the late-night throng. The men fell back, but I knew they'd keep looking. We made it to Sam's car, where he was waiting, his face pale. "You got it?" he asked. I nodded, holding up the ledger. "This better be worth it." Back at the safe house, we pored over the ledger. It was a Goldman names of clients, judges, even cops, with payments listed next to dates and cryptic notes. One entry stood out: Caleb Monroe, $50, 000, handled. My stomach churned. This was the proof we needed, but it also meant Caleb was gone, really gone. Sam worked through the night, drafting the exposé. By morning, it was ready to go to print. But Vincent wasn't done. That afternoon, the safe house's buzzer rang. Maya checked the camera, her face paling. "It's him," she whispered. Vincent stood at the door, alone, his face calm but deadly. "Elliot," he called, his voice carrying through the speaker. "Let's talk." Maya grabbed my hand. "Don't," she said. "He's baiting you." But I knew he wouldn't leave. This was my fight. I buzzed him in, my heart pounding, the ledger hidden under the couch. Vincent stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room like a predator. "You've been busy," he said, his voice low. "But it ends now." Vincent's presence filled the safe house like smoke, choking the air. He stood in the doorway, his suit immaculate, his smile a weapon. I felt the weight of 3 years under his control, every moment of fear and doubt crashing back. But I wasn't the same Elliot anymore. Maya stood beside me, her hand brushing mine, a silent reminder that I wasn't alone. "Sit down, Vincent," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Let's end this." He raised an eyebrow, amused. "End this? You think you can outplay me?" He stepped closer, his eyes flicking to Maya. "And you, his little savior. You're in over your head." Maya didn't flinch. "We've got everything, Vincent. Your files, your ledger, your own words on tape. It's over." For a moment, his mask slipped, and I saw the rage beneath. But he recovered quickly, leaning back with a smirk. "You think a few papers and a recording will take me down? I own this city." "Then why are you here?" I asked, stepping forward. "If you're so untouchable, why bother with me?" His smile faded. "Because you're mine, Elliot. And I don't lose what's mine." The words hit like a slap, but they didn't break me. I thought of Ryan, Caleb, all the others he'd crushed. I thought of Maya, who'd risked everything for me. I thought of the sketchbook under my bed, filled with pieces of a life I was fighting to reclaim. "You're wrong," I said. "I was never yours. And I'm done running." Vincent lunged, faster than I expected, his hand grabbing my wrist. But Maya was quicker, shoving him back with a force that surprised us all. "Touch him again, and you're done," she said, her voice a growl. He laughed, but it was strained. "You're both fools. You have no idea what you're up against." Before he could say more, the door burst open. Sam stood there, flanked by two cops, ones we'd vetted through his police contact. Ones Vincent couldn't buy. "Vincent Kane," one of them said, "you're under arrest for extortion and witness tampering." Vincent's face went white, but he didn't resist as they cuffed him. He turned to me, his eyes burning. "This isn't over," he said. "You'll see." But as they led him away, I felt a weight lift. It wasn't over, not yet, but it was the beginning of the end. Sam's expose hit the next day. Front page news. The ledger, combined with Claire's files, Lena's emails, and my recording, painted a damning picture. Vincent's empire crumbled as clients dropped him. Judges recused themselves, and the feds opened an investigation. The city turned on him, the whispers growing into a roar. Maya and I moved to a new apartment, a small place we could afford together. I kept working at the coffee shop, but I started submitting my art to galleries. Small steps toward a dream I'd almost forgotten. Maya got a job at a nonprofit, helping others like us, people who'd been trapped, who needed a way out. One night, we sat on our new balcony, the city sprawling below us. I showed her a sketch I'd been working on, a portrait of us, standing together against a neon-lit Los Angeles, our faces fierce and free. "This is us," I said, my voice soft. "This is who we are." She smiled, her hand finding mine. "We're survivors," she said. "And we're more than that. We're home." Vincent's trial was months away, but I didn't care. I'd faced him, and I'd won. Not because he was gone, but because I was free. I'd found my voice, my art, my family in Maya. I'd found myself. Sometimes, I still looked over my shoulder, half expecting to see his face. But the fear was fading, replaced by something stronger, hope. I prayed I'd never see Vincent Kane again. But if I did, I knew I could face him. Because I wasn't his anymore. I was mine.